Hello and welcome back to our continuing adventures on the Let's Defend platform. Yes, I am back after a short 2-week hiatus. Burnout is real. Take care of yourselves. Okay, moving on. We are tackling something semi-current. I mean, as I record this, it's August 2nd, and this was, what, mid-July, I think, when this was basically kicking off? All the hubbub in regards to the SharePoint vulnerability. So we are taking a look underneath the Security Analyst Path, SOC342, CVE-2025-53770 SharePoint ToolShell Auth bypass and remote code execution, or RCE. EventID is 320, type is web attack. This occurred July 22nd. Yeah, that sounds about right. This was the new hotness for a while. Let's see. Source, destination. So from external to internal, like we would expect, post. It does call the ToolPane.aspx. In the requested URL, we get a nice user agent. Refer is calling out the underscore layouts / SignOut.aspx. Oh, I've got a content length. I wonder if that's going to play a role in this. So what is this? I'll grab several of these and put them in the description if you want to know. But effectively, it is a vuln in SharePoint that if you specifically requested that, see, I think Picus had it, yeah. You do a post request to this endpoint, so /_layout /15 /toolpane.aspx !displaymode equals edit, and you include in the refer for that post request /layout /15 /signout.aspx. SharePoint thinks that effectively that you've signed out and bypasses auth, which is bad enough. Then allows you to go through and do any number of things. I know that they were talking about that machine keys were pulled, so you'd have to sit there and rotate. And then web shells, I think, were the other major portion that were basically being dumped. That would be spinstall 0, spinstall 1, and I think there were a couple of other names that were used, all .aspx. So basically the web shells would then allow you to take control of the system and go through and do what you need to do. And it looks like, yeah, they talk about where you can expect to sit there and see that aspect. View state payloads. By leaking these secrets, the attacker gains the ability to generate their own signed payloads that SharePoint will accept and deserialize. Typical command chain that was observed for compromise. Underneath NT authority IUSR. So w3wp.exe, so I think that's what IIS. Then you get command.exe, and then you get PowerShell running some sort of base64 encoded command. So let's go back to this. And we need to confirm what we are being told. So we'll take the source IP, we'll dump it into the built-in intelligence feed. And yes, I know I might be a little bit darker. It's unfortunately one of the areas, area lights are effectively just shot. Let's see if I can find some bulbs. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. So at least according to the intelligence that's built into the platform, we do have confirmation that this has been tagged with this particular vulnerability on the same date that we got the detection for. So this is 6:30. When was this? 107. So give or take 5.5 hours of time. Sounds about right. So let's go back to basic. So we can just do the research. And that's all we have, is that it basically just communicated one hit. But we get to see the rest of everything. Host, user, agent content. I mean, it doesn't follow it fully, since it's missing the 15, but I don't know if that's actually a hard and fast rule. In the path. Again, I know I'm flipping through the stuff rather fast, but like I said, will put these in. Oh. These actually led to ransomware. I think I missed that. Well, I mean, it's remote code execution, so why not, I guess. That's for detection. I don't know as to whether or not this is... So I think it was Monday that they ended up having patches put together for. This was allowed to go through for the weekend. Mostly, the biggest recommendation, I think, was basically taking your SharePoint servers offline. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that... Yeah, because even Zscaler talks about the /15, although... Okay, well, I think that's close enough regardless. It only communicated once. So if we were to take a look at SharePoint, no browser history, what do we got for term? We do have payload.exe. Yeah, it definitely looks like it hit and did the needful. So this would be an example of the base 64 encoded PowerShell that we could expect to see. Let's see. CyberChef. We'll take a look at that in a second since I've got that copied. We'll give that a second to cook. And then we take a look at processes. So there's W3, WP.exe, it seems like we effectively skipped the CMD and just went straight to PowerShell, at least for this. And it looks like that was on page 2. Just wondering if we would actually see anything that would end up calling for the the shell itself. And there's what we ended up observing underneath the terminal history. So did you finish what you need to do? Yes, you did. Okay. So we're going to put the base 64 in there. We're going to go and copy the from base 64, and then we get the actual code down here. So this was basically just to get the machine key, by the looks of it. Well, we can definitely say that this thing has been popped, and so we're just going to go ahead and, yeah, we just want this quarantined. Come on. I got to get a new mouse. I have one of the, not original, but when Dell mice wired USB went laser, and they released the black option as opposed to that white beige type of thing. It's like 10 plus years old, maybe longer, older, but yeah, I don't think we really need to do much else. I mean, we've confirmed what happened. They exploited rotate machine codes, isolate public-facing servers. Oh yeah, well, okay, we've done that after the fact, but that doesn't help us much. Okay. And I doubt there's going to be anything here that would even be remotely related. Nope, it looks like that's all like 2025. It's just all up the top, and there's like, what, one email that survived? Everything else that might have been, or that we would have working through this stuff. Okay, so email's not going to tell us anything. So we've confirmed via thread intel of activity in relation to that. We can confirm that we see the connection to the host via the logs. It definitely seems like the refer is in place, the request is in place, like what we'd expect for this to actually kick off. And then shortly after all this stuff is done, we get hiccups. Gotta love it. Anywho. Oh, it just entirely derailed me. Okay, so we see the connection. We then see that looks valid. We then see PowerShell with an encoded base 64 payload that looks like it's basically grabbing the machine key, which is one of the things that is talked about that you can do exploiting this. We then see what looks like it's sitting there and making a payload.exe in C Windows temp. Oh, there it is. There it is. Down at the bottom. There's our spinstall0.aspx. So it looks like we have deployment of the web shell as well. So yeah, this thing is owned 5 ways from Sunday. Yeah. That goes hard stop. It looks like somebody ctemp notes. Yeah, we don't get wonder if there's an IR section in relation to this to actually be able to take a look at the web shell and then potentially some of these note aspects like ctemp notes.txt. So there's also some other weird activity going on here. Get process. Yeah. So that would be something that we would probably be looking for. So we want to see if we can find that payload.exe inside of cwindows temp. We want to take a look and see as to whether or not if we can find this ctemp notes. And what I want to do is I'm just going to sit there and jot some of this stuff down. I don't know, like I said, if there is. Anything further. But I've got the location, so we'd be able to quickly go through and check if there is an IR portion of this. But it would be worth noting that we've got evidence of the machine key being extracted, web shell, and then something weird in regards to local file system locations. The ctemp notes.txt, and then the actual location for the ASPX file just to verify. So, okay, so we've got that done. We're going to go ahead and take ownership, and then we'll run through the playbook, even though we've effectively done it. We've got our notes and everything dumped through. Understand why the alert triggered. Because it was looking for evidence of access to that, again, that endpoint with that particular referrer. So ToolPane.aspx display mode equals edit, and then /_layout /SignOut.aspx. Okay. Traffic between the two devices. Yeah, from the outside source that threat intel is verified, the one starting in 107 for the IP, and then to our SharePoint 01, collect data. It's coming in. Who owns the device? Whoever has the Let's Defend user. I wonder if this was actually observed, now that I'm thinking about it. So if we just took this, and let's just virus total, Talos, just to see. I know we've got the internal threat intel, but Whoa. Yeah, I would say that apparently real-world intel flew into the actual center, the platform intel. So Vulture, but it's US. Itemseller.com. Well, so this thing's just doing all the evil. The Constant Company. Poor untrusted web rep. And yeah, it's on the block list. First seen 7/21 UTC. With an expiration date all the way to August 31st. Wow. Okay. So I think we can say, yes, that it has a terrible reputation. And we know that it's owned by Vulture. And then what kind of attack? Is the traffic malicious? Yes. What is the attack type? It's not XML injection. It's not cross-site scripting. It's not SQL injection because it's not SQL. Huh. I don't know. What would we technically label this? I mean, it's remote code execution, so would that just not be? Or would it be other? Let's see if it's been mapped. Execute code over targeting on-premise. Oh, yeah, that was the other aspect. This had to be self-hosted SharePoint. Yeah, just remote code execution. I don't know what that would technically count as. So let's load up the Web Attacks 101 quickly. Yeah, it should be just about... Oh, they've added more, I think. So our interest is... Would it fall underneath command injection? Because this is not... Yeah, but we're not putting this stuff in. It's the request to start. Now, granted, after you've gotten through the request portion is when you sit there and do the rest. Crap. Oh, screw it. It is not planned. This was from internet to company network. Identify if it was successful. Yes. It has been contained, and now we add the happy, loving artifacts, which unfortunately is only going to be a few. We can't connect to the host, at least not underneath the security analyst portion. And we don't have an action or a section to denote local file paths on the host to go through and take a look. So realistically, what we have is the attacker's IP address, and that's about it. Realistically, and I'm sure it will depend on the organization, but I can tell you as well, as an analyst role, you were still expected to sit there and gather supporting evidence. It's not just, okay, so I guess maybe it's all just going to come down. So as an analyst, effectively, we would be remotely connecting to the host via EDR, and we would go through and we would either generate hashes of the particular files in question. We would go through and we would pull files from that system in order to sit there and have a known copy from a particular time point. And we'd still do the same exact thing of network isolate the host. But so we would go a little bit further than this. Because if we could actually connect, then we would go through and, generate hashes for, where is it? See as to whether or not if we could get hashes for the payload.exe inside of C Windows temp. And then we want to get a copy of that just in case the hash is not inside of VirusTotal. So we could go through and sandbox to see if there's any other goodies that we can shake out of this thing. And then obviously too, we would go through and grab from program files, common files, Microsoft shared, web server extensions, 16 template layouts. We'd get the spinstall 0.aspx and just have a copy of that so we could sit there and poke at that as time permitted. But realistically, since the current role does not have us doing that, we're not going to be able to go and get that further info. So sadly, this is all we got. Should it be escalated? Yes, because it needs to actually be done. Known attacker IP or CVE-2025-53770 communicating with SharePoint 01 using the vulnerable endpoint and refer. Shortly after, creation of c:/windows/temp/payload.exe and size of the web shell at and we'll dump that in there. There is also odd notes.txt. It appears to be in c:/temp/notes. Right? Notes. So ctemp notes. Machine key also appears to have been extracted via encoded PowerShell commands. Okay, so we touched on the major bases. We've informed that a known attacking IP for this particular CVE made a connection to our SharePoint 01 system. Shortly thereafter, we see evidence of the PowerShell being called from w3wp.exe, which the encoded command, or base64 encoded command, appears to be something to extract the machine key. And then we're also calling out the aspect of the payload being created in C-Windows temp, and then also evidence of the web shell being created in templates, layouts, and then following the same particular aspects, install 0. And we've mentioned the notes.txt instead of ctemp. Playbook's done. We'll push it, and we'll see as to whether or not we'll just do the same thing for the message that we did for the note. And we did not get confetti, so let me guess, it was other, wasn't it? Unsafety, serialization, and RCE is the attack type of. So that would, out of all that stuff, been listed then as other. Which, okay, fine. I'm not going to fault it. I mean, it's legit. But there we go. From July 22nd, 2025, 1:07 p.m. SOC342, EventID 320. CVE-2025-53770 SharePoint ToolShell Auth bypass and RCE. And since we're effectively done with that, let's go back to main channel and let's flip over. Yeah, we want incident responder. Do we get a creation of let's try this. It's what, a web attack? I think is how that showed up. Okay. So do we get a case for this? No, we apparently do not. I mean, I can't imagine that it wouldn't be a critical, but let's try high. Jan 10th, 2024. No, okay. So there's not a follow-up aspect. Again, that's fine. All this is basically just going to just matter as to how your organization has everything separated. Like I said, with ours, we would have gone through and done more collection. That wouldn't have been IR. We would have escalated to IR because stuff's going to have to be done. But there would have been the expectation that we would have grabbed copies of these files. They would have been added to our case notes, and some rudimentary analysis done. Like, okay, we've checked perimeter logs for any signs of further communication from this particular IP address. We've gone through and yes, okay, we can confirm that this is a rather common web shell due to the hash because it was inside a virus total and it lights up like a Christmas tree. But we still have a copy that hasn't been touched. And same thing for the actual payload.exe. Has the hash been run through VT? Is it something that's well known? And then effectively any other intel that we can sit there and provide them. But get most of the metaphorical grunt work done, at least as much as possible. So, with all that being said, hopefully you've enjoyed, and as a further reminder, which probably isn't really necessary, but I'm going to say it anyways, make sure you're taking care of yourselves. With all that being said, I will see everybody in the next video.